Hello, how are you? I'm Joe from Malta, sharing with you some of my thoughts about the readings that we had today in the church all over the world. It's the 24th Sunday, Year B. And if I remember correctly, we had a reading from Isaiah, the first reading, and the Psalm, and then we had a reading from the Apostle James, and then the Gospel reading was from the Gospel of Mark. And in the Alleluia before the Gospel, there was a quotation from St. Paul which says, "I will not glory in anything but in the cross of Christ." A very important idea that our boasting is not in our own intelligence or our own understanding or our own good works, but in the cross of Christ through which we have been saved. So in the first reading from the prophet Isaiah, Jesus is sort of speaking ahead of the problems he was going to face. The fact that he was going to be beaten and spat upon and people will crucify him. And he said, I accepted that. But one verse really caught my attention. It was the first verse which said, "You have opened up my ears to hear your word." This is a sort of continuation from last Sunday, where Jesus opened the ears of the man. He said, "Ephatah, be opened." My friends, unless God opens our ears, hearing the word of God with our natural ears is not enough. We need the grace of God to really understand what God is really saying. And then in the second reading from James, from the Apostle James, we have this scenario of somebody saying, "I have faith." And the other one says, "Oh, I have works." And there's a kind of tug of war between faith and works, which is an artificial tug of war. Why? Because real faith results in real works. If you have faith that is dead, that is not real faith, it will not change your life. It will not change your behavior. But if your faith is real, if your faith is really in God, then there is a change in your behavior. You will start thinking the way God thinks. By nature, we are egoists. We want to get things for ourselves. By grace, we become people for others, men for others. We seek their welfare. Now, James is saying, okay, well, you can say whatever you like. You can use your theology, your dogmatics. But if I can't see a change in your behavior, then your faith must be dead. And then Jesus speaks in the gospel about faith in him. And Jesus asks the apostles, "Who do people say I am?" And some people say, some people say you're Elijah, coming back again, reincarnation, sort of. The other one said, other apostles said, you are a prophet. And then Jesus asks a second question, not what others are saying, but what you say. And who do you say I am? This is very important because it's not what others think that is of ultimate importance, but what we really think. And Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." In another gospel, there is an addition to this, where Jesus said, "It was not you who said it, but the Spirit of my Father who inspired you," sort of, And then Jesus goes on another level of teaching. So level 1 is, who do people say I am? Level 2, who do you say I am? And then he tells them who he really is and what is going to happen to him. He said, I must go through suffering, rejection, passion, burial, resurrection. So, and the apostles were dumbfounded. And Peter you know. The gospel says he took him aside and rebuked him. Just imagine, me rebuking Jesus. But that's what Peter did. And then there is a fine reflection in the gospel where Jesus does not speak to Peter alone, but the gospel says, and Jesus spoke to his disciples, his apostles, and then he said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are not thinking the way God thinks, but the way the world thinks, the way people think." And that really is a word of God for me, because I tend to think with a mindset that is prevalent in our society. We are all sort of part of a culture that thinks in a certain way. But if we stop there and we don't listen to the word of God and we don't receive inspiration, revelation, then we will not know the truth. And then Jesus said something terrifying in a way, but at the same time awesome. And he said, "If anyone wants to follow me, let him take up his cross and follow me. If you want to gain your life, you'll lose it. But if you lose your life for my sake and for the gospel's sake, you will find it." Now this seems to be like a contradiction. How can I find my life if I lose it? Well, if I am living in a hut in a jungle, and somebody says, "Well, I have bought a palace for you," I have to decide to lose my hut and say bye-bye to that little shelter I had to gain something better. Now, this is the challenge that we have. We have to really take up the challenges of our life, that is, take up our cross and follow Jesus. And follow Jesus, not escaping the suffering, but going through it. Jesus is the one that I have to follow if I have to find resurrection. But there is no resurrection without going through the cross. And Jesus is the one that leads us to true life. So my friend, do not be afraid to let go of what you think is life. Because what we think is life is nothing compared with the kind of life, level of life that Jesus offers. My friend, God bless. Bye.